It's great to be here tonight. Just for the record, I was mayor of Fort Wayne, Indiana, not Indianapolis, but another great city in the state of Indiana. I came to this issue as a mayor. Not only had I had the experience when I was a teenager of seeing a friend get a bullet in the back because of the all too common incident of we found a gun, we didn't know it was loaded, which happens every day in this country. But as a mayor, I saw what happens in a community when there are so many guns and when we make it so easy for dangerous people to get guns. I had police officers. One case I still remember well. I got the call in the middle of the night from the police chief. Our labor relations director, a police chief, married to a police officer. They kept the gun at their headboard. They wanted to be safe. They knew how to use the gun. They were police officers. They had a fight, domestic quarrel. She ended up dead. That happens a lot in this country. Actually, the statistics show that if you've got a gun in your home, it's 22 times more likely to be used against you or a family member than to protect you. Think about that again, 22 times more likely. And part of the reason is that the world doesn't easily divide into the good guys and bad guys, because there's always sort of a chance that any of us can get angry. Any of us can get drunk. And if the gun is there, what's going to happen with that gun? When you look at the arguments for the proponents here, basically they talk about these 2 million defensive uses. And as Professor Donahue said, that's a questionable number. Yes, it was based on probability sampling. There were 66 people who responded to a poll that said they used a gun defensively. 66, and then you extrapolate that by the adult population of the U.S., and you get 2 million gun uses. Just 66. When you do sampling and have such a small affirmative number, and then you multiply it by huge things, you get these outrageous things. Based on that, more people have been in flying saucers in this country. It shows what happens with statistics. Actually, when I was running for mayor of Fort Wayne, I learned quickly how statistics, how it works. I was running against an incumbent. I looked at what had happened at crime in my community, and there had been times when crime went up. And so I'm digging out the statistics. The police chief at one time said, yes, crime was up because the economy was down. People lost their jobs. They were going to commit crimes. Then I found another clip from 2 years later. He said, well, crime is up because the economy's good. More people have things to steal. You can take statistics and do whatever you want with them so many times. The one statistic that doesn't lie are deaths. You have to do probability sampling for these other things, but when you look at deaths, you get the shocking statistics that 32 people are killed with guns, murdered with guns every day in this country. That's a Virginia Tech happening every day in this country. 30,000 people die from guns every year. That includes the suicides and the accidents. You get the situation like just a couple days ago in Massachusetts. Some kid is shooting a machine gun at some gun show, and he kills himself because he can't hold it. What is going wrong with this country? 30,000 deaths. And then when you combine the 70,000 people that are injured every year, people like Jim Brady, who, by the way, was with President Reagan at the time, surrounded by people with guns, the Secret Service. That didn't stop them from getting shot. Those guns didn't reduce that crime. The other argument that the proponents seem to make is they're holding up this straw man of the gun bans and how gun bans don't work. And you can argue the statistics. Actually, after D.C. had their handgun ban, gun suicides went down 23%, gun homicides went down 25% when you looked at a 10-year period. So there's a lot of statistics there. But the real issue is not gun bans. We're not talking about gun bans. We're talking about the question, do more guns reduce crime? And it's clear that the more guns you get out there, the more likely those guns are going to be stolen. Where do you think the criminals get these guns? That these guns are going to be trafficked. Where do you think the criminals get these guns? Misused. Where do you think accidents happen from? Used in road rage, used in the domestic violence situation. It's the guns that add to the problem. Other countries in the world have the same level generally of rapes and of burglaries and of robberies and of assaults that we do, industrialized countries. But we are far and away the most deadly country when it comes to gun crime because we have so many guns. In fact, if you think about it for a second, if the proposition were true that guns reduce crime, we should be the safest country in the world. And we're not. And it's because we do have so many guns, and those guns too easily get in the wrong hands. And actually, when you think about this proposition, rather than voting to say that guns reduce crime, you should stop and think that really restricting access to guns is what would reduce crime. We're coming up on the 15-year anniversary of the Brady Bill. The Brady Bill said, instead of taking an individual's word, whether they're a felon or mentally dangerous, let's do a background check. The Brady said, bright idea, right? Don't just say, are you a felon? No, of course not. It's the Brady background check system has stopped 1.6 million people from buying guns who weren't allowed to buy guns. We had a situation just last week in Virginia where somebody went in to buy a gun. Turns out there's a murder warrant from them in Baltimore, and the person got arrested. Criminals, like the chief said, aren't always the brightest people in the world. In fact, this guy tried to argue, well, I didn't commit the murder. I wouldn't have gone and bought a gun if it didn't make any sense. Brady background checks work. If we decide that some people are probably more prone to violence, again, people with a felony record, people that are dangerously mentally ill, let's stop them from buying those guns. Let's use background checks. Let's have them at all sales, not just from federally licensed dealers. Let's do things to stop gun trafficking. Do you realize that you can go in and buy 81 of the same make and model of a gun tomorrow? And what do you think is going to happen when someone did that at Charlie Brown's gun store in Dayton, Ohio a few years back? 81 of the same make and model. They sell them out of the trunk of their car. People don't realize how weak our gun laws are in this country. We basically allow almost anyone to get any kind of a gun. Last thing I wanted to comment on is the Supreme Court case. The Supreme Court case, while making it clear that gun bans are off the table, made it clear that we can have reasonable restrictions, that we can restrict who gets the guns, where they take the guns, how the guns are sold, how the guns are stored, and all the things that deal with guns. That's where this debate should come down. I'm not anti-gun. I've got my NRA pro marksmanship badge from when I was in 6th grade. My friends all went hunting and did these things too. But once you see how easy we make it for dangerous people to get guns, you'll conclude that you should vote against the proposition. Thank you.